Now, there are three things that prevent people from finding their own power. And we'll go into that in another video in more detail, but fear, guilt, or idolatry are the three things that stop people from finding their own power. Because once they find their own power, they can solve that problem. Now, so if fear is, or guilt or idolatry is one of the three things that is stopping them from fully associating with that problem, then what it means is they're actually holding on to that fear, or holding on to that guilt, or holding on to that idolatry. And what I mean by idolatry, say, you could say like a fantasy. So some people, maybe they know that they should be doing something in their life, but they might pursue a fantasy instead, which they don't really want, but it looks really shiny. Like they might think, okay, well, I really want to go and do this now because this is really shiny. This is some sort of fantasy that I really want, but I know deep down I really want to be doing this instead. So idols, sometimes we can hold onto idols or fantasy in the fear of letting go of those idols and just finding our inner power, our inner love, and just doing what we know that we want to do, or just being who we know that we want to be. So fear, guilt, or idolatry can be the three things that hold us back. And there could be some beliefs around those ideas that are preventing them from fully associating with their power. Because if someone is, let's say they want to go and do something, but they fear doing that thing, so they might, they have this fear that could be present, or this fear attached to that idea, then what we can do through questions is we can find out what is the root cause of that fear. What is it that that person is fearing, and how can we help them to let go of that fear? So we do that through questions. We find out what are the beliefs that are attached to that fear. What are the beliefs that are attached to that guilt? Or what are the beliefs that are attached to that idolatry? Once we undo those beliefs, then that person can find their power instead. So one of the ways we do that is we can ask a question. Someone comes to you with a problem saying, I have this rejection that I keep experiencing at work or in my relationship, and it's a real problem for me. So you can ask the question, well, how is that a problem for you now? And by asking how is that a problem, then you can delve deeper into some of the concerns that they have. Another question you can ask is, what would happen if you did or you didn't? What that means is, let's say if the client was to just fully associate with the power, or they were to do something that they know they want to do, or they want to let go of some sort of sickness in their life, or some sort of any disturbance or concern in their life, you can ask the question, what would happen if you did just go and do that? What would happen if you just let go of that fear? And the response that they come up with can reveal to you a belief that might be attached to that fear or to that idea. And once you understand what that belief is, then through your language, you can help them to undo that belief. You could also ask, what specifically do you fear the most? So some people might come to you with anxiety problems. So they might say, I suffer from this anxiety all the time. I don't know how to solve it. So, okay, well, anxiety, that's a fairly broad description. So could you tell me, what is it that you fear the most? And once you find out what they fear the most, then you can work with that specific fear. And once you undo that fear and help them find their power, then any other fear which might be presented to them, they can use the same process to work with those fears. And also, what specifically are you most unhappy about? If someone comes to you and they're unhappy, maybe they're feeling, they've got this idea of depression, and they come to you with this idea of depression and say, look, I'm just unhappy. Well then, to get more specific and find out what are the beliefs that are going on attached to this, you could ask, what specifically are you most unhappy about? And then we do a wrap-up and a pre-frame. And just remembering again that this is not a set procedure, this is just a rough guideline that you can use. So wrap up, you could say, okay, so if we could help you to let go of that fear today and possibly find your own interpersonal power so that you just have peace of mind and you have no fear, then would that be a worthwhile result for us to achieve today? And if they say yes, okay, then you could pre-frame what you're going to do from here. You could say if they want, or if you feel it's right to pre-frame. what I'm going to do is I'm just going to ask you some simple questions which will help me to find your interpersonal power. Okay? And once we've found that power, then we can go about releasing that fear or help you to let go of anything which is preventing you from moving forward. And once they understand what you're going to do, then they can have some more trust in moving forward. Then what we would do is help the client to disassociate from the problem. And what that means is putting the problem outside of them. And one of the ways that we do that is by using temporal or spatial linguistics. Now, I'll go through this in more detail in another video, but temporal and spatial, what that means is language that involves either time or space. So temporal meaning time language, or spatial language. So what we would do, for an example, is you could say, okay, so I feel this fear. This client might come to you saying, I feel this fear about this, about whatever. I have this anxiety. So you could say, okay, so where is this fear that you feel? Where is the problem? Where is this fear? Or they might say, I don't feel love from my partner. So you could say, okay, so when don't you feel love from your partner? So in their mind, they have this idea which may involve time or may involve space. So what you're doing is you're helping them to understand, okay, where in your mind do you see or feel, or where do you think this problem? Once they've got the problem, even if it's just a past memory or something like that, okay, so where is that thought? Where are the feelings that are associated with that thought? Where do you see that? Do you see that problem outside of you? Do you see that memory outside of you? Do you see that future event outside of you? Because you could help them understand, well, the problem is not you, is it? The problem is something that you observe outside of you. So already I'm using language like outside, the word outside, helping them understand that the problem is not them, the problem is outside of them, so that you're putting the problem in a perspective that they're then able to deal with. And then we could also ask, where or when is the problem not? Okay, an example of that might be, my husband, he abuses me, he always abuses me. Okay, so when does your husband not abuse you? Or my husband doesn't love me. Okay, when does your husband love you? Or when do you not feel love from your husband? So we're getting to the specifics of the problem, finding out when the time is and where the location is. Then what we do is we help the client to find their power so that they can then solve that projection which they now see outside of themselves. So what you could ask to help them find their power is you can ask them, okay, now seeing that problem outside of you, if you're observing that problem outside of you, or if you're feeling that fear outside of you, if you're feeling that fear in your body, or if you're feeling that fear in your mind, or wherever that is. So where you're observing from, where is it that you're observing the problem from? And what this does is this helps the client to start going inwards. So they start going back into themselves to find their own power. Because they realize now that the problem is something that they're observing. And they're realizing that the problem is not them, so they're disassociating themselves from the problem. They're letting go of the attachments that they have to the problem. They're letting go of the identification that they might have to the problem. And in that process, you're helping them find who or what they really are, which is the power that they have, that they are, which is infinite. So we start asking the question, okay, so if the problem is outside of you and you're seeing this problem outside of you, then can I ask you, where are you observing this problem from? And once they start to question that, it might take them a couple of seconds. They might all of a sudden be confused. Maybe they've never looked inward before. Maybe they've never really understood or known who they really are. So it might take a couple of seconds. They might come back with a response, well, I don't know, what do you mean? So you might have to clarify again for them. Okay, this place where you're observing from, what is that? What are you? Okay, so you could say, where are you and what are you? They might say, well, where am I? Okay, well, I'm in this building right now. Okay, so you're observing the building. Where are you observing the building from? And then they start to go inwards. When they start to go inwards, then they realize that they are not the problem. They are observing the problem, and they start to find the power that they have